On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers are off to the best start in the NBA. I brought in Spencer Davies to talk about why, and we give reasons why we think that this best start for the Cavs can keep going on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave a nice review, and be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Also, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, and you will get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. For today's show, brought in Spencer Davies from Cavaliers on SI and a brand new podcast over there that you should definitely check out once you're done listening to this one. But we're going to talk about what's gone right for the Cavs so far because they're off to a 4-0 start. Advanced metrics paint them as one of the best basketball teams in the league. I think the eye test also paints them as one of the best basketball teams in the league. And Spencer, the Cavs have beat 3 really bad teams and what I think is going to be a really, really good team in the New York Knicks. I've been nothing but impressed so far. And one of the things I've been impressed about as the Cavs get off to this 4-0 start is they haven't needed Donovan Mitchell to be the guy that's carried the load for them to get to 4-0. And I think that is something that bodes really well for the future of this team.
No doubt. They want to celebrate their depth. That's the biggest thing that Kenny Atkinson talked about throughout training camp, and he's been a man of his word. Guys aren't getting a ton of minutes on them early, as you see with the core 4, and a lot of guys off the bench are contributing, different mixing and matching. We've seen some lineups that maybe we didn't see in the preseason that have really given them a boost. But even when they don't, like on Monday, Ty Jerome's been one of their best players, but he just didn't have it. So what did he do? He went to Karis LeVert and George Niang. Sam Merrill played over 20 minutes and gave them a big boost. So that's just one example of the depth of this team and how it can really propel them forward as far as just not having to put it all on one or two guys' shoulders. It's a team thing. The field goal attempts, I think, per game for each player are very spread out. You look at the minute allocation, you look at a lot of different factors and the assist numbers and how it just all seemingly matches. And that just is going to be the identity of this squad.
Yeah, I do think that this is going to be more of a team effort than the Cavalier teams that we've seen in the Donovan Mitchell era. Like, I think that's a fair cutoff point because I think that this team pretty drastically changed the day they made that trade. They sped up their timeline. Like, this became a much different team. And each of the last 2 years, Spencer, they've been really good. And they haven't gotten to where they wanted to go in the playoffs, but they've been a really good regular season team. Even last year, when they dealt with so many injuries, had so many key guys miss significant chunks of time, they still found a way to win a lot of basketball games. But I think a big reason why they were able to find a way to win as many basketball games as they did was because whenever they needed to, Donovan Mitchell was able to just put the team on his shoulders, and he was able to take them where they needed to go. He was able to put on that superhero cape, the Spider-Man cape, if you will, and find a way to pull out wins all the time. And I do think that this year it's going to be such a different story because we already saw, if you look back, you go rewatch that game against New York on Monday night at Madison Square Garden. Donovan Mitchell very clearly takes a backseat to Darius Garland. I think, one, it's a great thing that he's willing to do that. And it's an even better thing that Darius Garland has shown again because I don't think he showed it all that frequently last year. Like, I'm not sure that he has had a game last season that was as good as his game Monday night in New York. But it was really good to be able to see him do that, to be able to put the team on his back and take them to a victory, because that changes who this team can be.
It almost was reminiscent of the last year without Donovan, the way that Darius put the team on his back. It was swings, it was pull-up threes, it was catch-and-shoot threes, driving and hitting the pocket, driving and hitting the floater, almost like a read option play in football. That's what makes Darius Garland so dangerous, is his ability to read the game and to make defenders crash in on him so that other guys are open for it. And you saw Jarrett Allen reap the benefits. You saw Evan Mobley, especially in the second half, reap the benefits of that. And even the shooters on the outside that can really get a boost from what Darius does as far as letting guys thrive when he's drawing the attention. So it was great to see that. You saw a little bit of that in Washington too, the way that they finished that game in loud fashion in the fourth quarter. And DG's been terrific the last couple of games, and it took him a little bit to kind of find his groove and as far as the shot goes and as far as scoring goes, but he's always been this guy. We know this is in him, and a lot of the locker room, if you listen to the post-game bites, are just like, we told you so. We told you this guy who had his jaw wired shut, who had all of these injuries and lost 12 pounds last year and all of that stuff. We told you that was in him. You guys just couldn't wait. You couldn't see it because he played through all that stuff, and that's admirable. But this is the Darius Garland who the Cavaliers know and love. Yeah,
and I think Donovan Mitchell said it pretty well on Monday Night in New York. At least, this is what I heard on the FanDuel Sports Network post-game show, where he's basically like, we know who said that this wasn't going to work, that DG couldn't be an all-star again. You stay on that side. Don't change up your tune now. I don't think he was talking about me. I think I've been a pretty staunch Darius Garland supporter. I'm curious who he was talking about, but that was real noise. Like, there were people that don't believe that backcourt can work, that don't believe Darius Garland could reach an all-star level again. I don't know that he will be an all-star per se this season, because I think it's really difficult to have two all-stars that play the same position on the same team. And I just don't see a world where, if healthy, Donovan Mitchell is not on the all-star team, because that guy's an absolute superstar. But yeah, Darius Garland is playing like an all-star. And truthfully, I think Evan Mobley has too for the first couple of games. You go back and watch what he did against Toronto. And I know against the Knicks, he had a very quiet first shift where I think the Cavs struggled to get him the basketball. He really couldn't get anything going. And then for the last three quarters of that game, I thought he was fantastic. But I do think that in addition to seeing a much better version of Darius Garland than what we saw last year, we're also seeing Evan Mobley sort of just find that aggressiveness that a lot of people have wanted to see on a more consistent basis over the past couple of seasons.
And there's a synergy there between the guards and Evan Mobley. They're knowing how to play off of him already. It's the fact that Evan's bringing the ball up, he's rebounding and pushing. The sheer force that he's playing with too, and just, we saw it in the preseason and we talked about it a little bit then, but just lowering his shoulder, using spin moves, using dribble, an array of dribble moves, the way that he's kind of manipulating defenses in that way, and also just going straight at him. Like, there were a number of times where he went right at Karl Anthony Towns, and with no fear, whether it was a turnaround J or a hook shot or drawing a foul. Those are the things that you want to see from Evan Mobley as he continues to be aggressive and continues to make this a habit that becomes consistent for him. And Darius helps with that. Darius finds him, and he finds Darius. That was the thing. Like, Darius and Donovan are playing off of him in a way where we're not used to seeing. Darius and Donovan have been in the corners quite a lot. They've been coming off of dribble handoffs and really making plays from that position and passing out of passes. So like that, I feel like is just the difference in the offense this year with Kenny versus what you saw in previous years. So it's a synergy between everybody. And, even Karis LeVert, same thing. Karis is making it easier on Evan, and everyone's helping each other. It's hard to single out anyone, and I know that we're obviously talking about these guys because they're the core four. But in a true sense of fashion, in a true team fashion, these guys are all helping each other, and they're all playing on a string.
Yeah, they are. And I think that there are some specific things that we are seeing on offense particularly that is so drastically different than what we've seen from the Cavs in years past. And I think that starts in the backcourt. I think that starts with how Kenny Atkinson is using Darius Garland, how he's using Donovan Mitchell, and a little bit of Evan Mobley too. I want to break that down just a little bit next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the number one ticket marketplace out there. It's my go-to ticket marketplace. It should be your go-to ticket marketplace as well. Why is it my go-to ticket marketplace? For a couple of reasons. One, the all-in pricing option that you can toggle on. I want to know what I'm going to be paying when I buy tickets to an event, whether it's Cavs Lakers tonight, whether it is maybe a Cleveland Browns game on Sunday, now that they look like a watchable football team again. Maybe it's a concert, maybe it's something else. But I want to know, what am I going to be paying? I don't want to be surprised with taxes and fees when I get to the final stage, the checkout stage of the process. I want to know from the start. Game Time allows that to be the case. Just toggle on that all-in pricing feature. Another thing I love doing is when I'm buying seats, I want to know what is my view going to be? What's the view of center court or the 50-yard line or the concert stage? What's that going to look like? Game Time, you can select your seat and they will show you exactly just what your view is going to look like. I think those are great things that Game Time does, and they do a great job of taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. So what I need you to do is download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure a friend hits subscribe. Also, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the latest Locked On Cavs content. So, Spencer, offense, I think, has looked different for the Cavs. And one of the things that I've noticed so much more, and I would be very surprised if you haven't noticed this too, but it does feel to me as if Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are playing off the ball, not like a ton, but much more frequently than they had in the past. Like there was a three-pointer that Garland hit in the fourth quarter of Monday night's game where he got the ball on the left wing off of Jarrett Allen had it above the circle, and then Dean Wade brought it around to the left wing who got it to Garland. And that happened with like 4 minutes left in a 3-point game. Last year, I don't think the Cavs are in that position to where they're trusting other people to make offensive decisions. Like I think that if they're in that spot last year, one, Donovan Mitchell's on the floor. And two, the ball is going to be in the hands of Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell to either create for themselves or to create for somebody else. I don't think other people were creating for those guys in that spot before. And that's just a huge difference, I think.
It's a fair assessment. I think the creativity and the imaginativeness of Kenny is really coming into play here. One of my favorite sets on Monday was when he had Sam Merrill go and set a screen for Evan Mobley, and he was inside of the key. He ended up popping out to the left wing, also the left wing. Evan had the ball, passed it out to Sam. Karis LeVert cut from the wing position, and then George Niang relocated to the corner for a triple. These are the types of actions that we're talking about when we're talking about Kenny being an offensive guru, utilizing someone's shooting gravity, utilizing someone's cutting gravity to create an open shot for somebody who is statistically a pretty dang good shooter from the outside in George Niang over his career. So that, I feel like, is a wrinkle that we're not used to seeing. You brought up how the guys are going off the ball, the main two guards. Everyone's doing something different. Dean Wade's cutting from the corners now. Dean Wade is doing a lot more than just being a static spacer, as we talked about in practice with Coach. There are just so many different elements to what he brings to the table. But I think the most important is that he has guys crashing the offensive rebounds. That's not something the Cavs have done in the past. They've always gotten back on D, and they were a good transition defensive team, but they didn't have as many possessions usually as their opponent did. This time, the Cavs are getting up more shots than their opponent. They're getting more opportunities and possessions. That's really going to be something that I think brings them into the modern era a little bit more. You see Dean Wade doing that. You see Jared Allen going after the offensive glass, Evan Mobley, all of these guys that are just plucking away. Karis LeVert, I think, has been phenomenal as far as just chasing down loose balls and giving extra possessions to the Cavs. George Niang was fantastic on Monday night at just stripping away, just trying to find a way to get his hand on the leather and then make an opportunity happen. It turned into a layup in one of those possessions. Those are such key moments. They are winning moments for a team that prides itself on being a dog mentality type of squad. And it's not only that, though, too, because they're keeping their defensive identity. They're still a good transition defensive team. It's just adding that to there. And when you get the stops on defense, you got to be better on the defensive glass. That's somewhere that they have had some issues with. But when they do get the defensive board, they're looking up. They're looking in outlets. They're looking to find the next open man in transition in the open floor. And it's just movement through passes is a lot easier than dribbling around and trying to drive and kick all the time. So just you pop that ball around and you know where the guy is going to be at the next spot. It just makes things so much easier, and it gets defenses shifting, and teams really have a hard time with that. And I think the best example is Game 1, Boston Celtics and New York Knicks. If you watched that game and you saw how much they were popping that thing around, it's impossible to do that for 48 minutes. But to come close to doing it in the way that the Cavs have done it in the first 4 games, I think that it can become a part of their identity.
I think it can too, and I think one of the most encouraging things for Cavs fans about what we've seen offensively that doesn't have to do with like a specific player, because you can say, oh, Evan Mobley's been more aggressive or Darius Garland looks like Darius Garland. But I think one of the most encouraging things is that it's only been 4 games. This group is still used to playing a certain style of basketball, and they are very much still in a period where they're adjusting to playing a new kind of offense in NBA games. They've only done it 4 times because you can do it, in summer workouts when the team gathers. You can do it during training camp, the preseason. But until you start doing it in real NBA games, and the Cavs have done a very good job of doing it in real NBA games, it's not something that becomes second nature. Like, there's always going to be a learning curve when you implement a new system on either side of the court, whether it's offense or defense. And, defensively, I don't think they have a new system. I think they've made maybe a couple of minor tweaks, but the field system didn't need to be changed. So offensively, this new system, Spencer, the way I look at it is this is almost, I don't want to say ground zero because that wouldn't be fair either. That'd be underselling how good they've gotten at it. But this is also far from a finished product with what they can be on offense.
It's in its infancy. And you said it, it's hard to break old habits. And sometimes the ball can get sticky. We saw that a little bit in the Detroit game. It gets a little sticky sometimes when you have been a ball dominant player your entire NBA career, say like Donovan Mitchell, for example. You're wanting to get your shots up because you think that you have to carry the team in certain situations or if there's a run happening. And that's not a bad thing. That's the dog in you. But when you see and when the ball go in and it's working within the system that you're just talking about, that gives you a little bit more trust. That gives the players trust in their teammates, even more so when they see the ball go through the hoop. And it's because of a product of 3 or 4 or 5 passes within one possession. And then that can just continue. You build those habits. Donovan said it like he said before, not satisfied with this. This is still a work in progress, but you're building the right habits so that when you do get in certain situations, like being down like they were for the first time in New York, where they can just trust it. Shots were not falling in the first half of that game, but they continued to trust what the work was. They continued to trust in what Kenny has instilled in them, and it ended up working out. They didn't even shoot that good in that game. They relied on defense, but when the possessions mattered down the stretch, they were able to execute, and they did it so as a team. And it sounds so cliche, but if you're able to trust your teammates like that, and if you're able to see that it's working, then that gives you more of an inclination to do it.
So before we move on to some things about Kenny Atkinson, I do want to ask you, how sustainable do you think this is? Like, how sustainable do you think the way Darius Garland has been playing is? How sustainable do you think Evan Mobley's offensive aggression is? How sustainable do you think it is that the Cavs win games against good teams without Donovan Mitchell needing to carry the load, because that is one of the things that I keep coming back to is this going to be something that can last?
Very. I don't see why not. These are all-star caliber players they have. Each of their core four are all-star caliber players. I don't think it's a stretch by any means that these guys can't continue this. I know it's early overreaction type week, first week in the NBA. Things happen like
We're
that.
overreacting. The Cavs are the best team in NBA history. They've not lost a game ever with Kenny Atkinson coaching, Spencer.
But at the same time, even if it comes in losses, that doesn't mean it's not sustainable. Like sometimes shots aren't going to fall. Dane Wade did not have a great shooting night the other night, but he stayed on the floor, played great defense, caused a couple of steals for some of the guys that were picking off in the passing lanes. If you play the right role, then you're fine in that situation. But as far as the core four is concerned, I don't see why not. And they're playing a lot together. I know a lot of people talk about the stagger. You have, DG is with Jared Allen and Donovan Mobley is with Donovan Mitchell is with Evan Mobley.
That's a nice combination. I think that'd be a pretty good player. If you could combine those two guys, you'd be like the best player in basketball.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. But those two staggered in the way that they've been wasn't something we expected, especially watching preseason. We were used to seeing Donovan with Jarrett as the veteran pairing, so to speak, and DG and Evan were the guys that had a synergy with each other. But those four have been able to play on the floor together. And I think it's going to be matchup based. And I think that's something to look down the line to when you think about, okay, is Max Strus going to be in the starting lineup when he's healthy again and all that stuff? That's great to look at down the road. But I don't see a situation where Kenny goes, oh yeah, I'm never going to play the core four with Dean Wade after Max Strus comes back. All these guys have a good feel for where each other are, their spots, and what kind of coverage they give each other on defense and where the screens are coming from. These are guys who love playing with each other, and you can just kind of tell by the way they talk about each other. But yeah, no, I think it's sustainable. I don't think that's even a question, honestly.
Well, Spencer, there have been some things I've seen from Kenny Atkinson that I absolutely love. And thing number one has to do with the minutes allocation. I'll tell you what that is next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Leave us a 5-star rating, say some nice words and review, and be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything that's put out on the Locked On Cavs podcast channel, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Spencer, in watching that game against the Knicks, and even if you didn't watch the game, which if you're listening or watching this, I'm going to bet that you watched that game. But if you can just pull up the box score to it, one of the things that stood out to me the most wasn't a points thing, wasn't assists, steals, offensive rebounds, of which the Knicks only got 2 in the second half, which was a huge win for the Cavs. Evan Mobley led the Cavs in minutes. And that was a game that you look at. It's not a game that I think, okay, the Cavs would not have won that had JB Bickerstaff been the head coach. Like, I can't say that's true or not true. I have no way of knowing whether they could have won that game under JB Bickerstaff. But the thing that I know for certain would not have been true in that setting against that team in a matchup that I think the Cavs can look at as a bit of a statement. If JB Bickerstaff were coaching the Cavs on Monday night, there's no way Donovan Mitchell only plays 33 minutes. There's no way that Evan Mobley leads the team in minutes. I think the way Kenny has cut down on minutes for some guys, relied on the depth a little bit more, has been one of the best things that he's done so far.
100%. And when you look back at these games in October, November, December, and you take away 3 to 4 minutes per game from these guys, that adds up towards the end of the season. And that allows them to be fresh going into April when it really matters and the playoffs come around. That is, I think, one of the biggest reasons why they went after Kenny Atkinson, because they saw how deep he went with those Brooklyn teams. He was really playing guys, and it was a feel thing too. Yes, he has a set rotation, but as I mentioned, like, he can read the game from the sidelines, and that's very important to be able to make in-game adjustments. The favorite thing that I heard from Monday was at halftime, there was one thing done in the locker room.
Yeah.
He showed a clip of the Knicks getting 3 offensive rebounds on one possession, and he looked at his team and he said, nope. And what happened in the second half? Cavs got after it on the defensive glass. I don't think that happened the rest of the game. So that
they had
is a
2
way.
offensive rebounds in the second half period. Like the Cavs.
There you go.
The Cavs got destroyed on the boards in the first half on both ends. And then in the second half, the Knicks had 2 offensive rebounds, and the Cavs out-rebounded them 21-15. Like, that is, if you want to look at a single stat comparison, why the Cavs won that game, that is the one to look at.
Yep, and they just wanted the ball more. And again, go back to that George Niang play or game or the play where Karis LeVert knocked it out of Josh Hart's hands. Like that, that's the sort of stuff that a coach can really connect with his players on. But again, he can just kind of he has a good feel for what way the game's going, what buttons to push. I brought it up earlier. Ty Jerome, he's been a steady backup point guard for him. It just was not his night. So what happens? He goes to Sam Merrill. He goes to Karis LeVert, George Niang. You get some more minutes here. Dean Wade wasn't shooting well, so George played some more. Like, that stuff goes a long way, and I think that really speaks to the team as a whole too, because they know they're not dumb. They know if it's not their night, okay, play someone that's a better fit for this matchup or is just better on this night. Like, Donovan's a perfect example. You just said it. He played 33 minutes.
I couldn't figure out how to look this up last night at 1:00 in the morning when I was trying to figure this out. But I can't think of very many games in Evan Mobley's career in which he led the Cavs in minutes played. I cannot think of very many of those games.
Played 36 Monday, right?
Yeah, and that led the team. Yeah. That's just, I can't think of many games, if any. That there might be, and I don't know this for sure, that might be the first time Evan has ever led the Cavs in minutes played.
Not sure. I'll have to look it up too, I guess, at 1 a.m.
But I mean, that never would have happened under JV Bickerstaff, because Donovan Mitchell would have played 41 minutes against the Knicks. He would have been on the floor basically every second Jalen Brunson was on the floor. And yeah. I thought it was really refreshing and really good to see Kenny Atkinson. I don't want to say stick to his process, because he did make those adjustments that you brought up with Ty Jerome. Isaac Okoro really didn't play in the second half. I think he treated that game against New York on Monday like a little bit of a statement game. Like, if that is a game where the Cavs are playing like that against, say, the Charlotte Hornets in the middle of November, I don't think he manages it the same way. But I think that there was an understanding that that game was important for, 1, tiebreaker purposes, and 2, that is a team that I think the Cavs are going to be fighting with for seeding at the end of the year. And you kind of wanted to make a statement. I think that the Cavs did.
There's no doubt that they're going to be in a tussle with these guys. They're going to be a tussle with Philly and Boston and Milwaukee and Miami, all the Indiana, Orlando. Have you seen what Paul Banchero's been doing?
We'll see him on Friday.
Yes, we will. I cannot wait for that game. The East is loaded. We know this. They're gonna have to build the habits now. They're gonna have to sustain these habits. Hopefully, stay healthy. Knock on wood, they stay healthy. But if this is the continued way that this rotation is managed, then I think there's no reason why there should be any wear and tear. Because you mentioned the minute allocation. This is what Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey were looking for, as far as making sure that you're just not running the wheels off of these guys. Yeah. And if that's happening, and you have 10 guys playing, 11 guys playing maybe one night, then you're going to be in good shape. You just hope they stay healthy in terms of no freak accidents or something like that, because the wear and tear stuff, that should go away. If they're ticking down their minutes like this and they're not extra fatigued, and by the way, fatigue also affects play. So that's another part of this. That's another part of this.
It is. Man, it is hard to shoot when you don't have legs. It's hard to take jumpers when your legs are gone.
Right. And especially like for someone like Dean Wade, who's exerting all that energy on the defensive end, not saying the other guys aren't, but like for him in particular as a role player, if you're exerting all that energy trying to guard the best player, same thing for Karras, it's not easy to get those shots up on the other end and communicate because you're out of breath. But yeah, no, that's why they brought him in to make sure that you can manage your rotation and sustain it and to extend the lifeline for these guys.
All right, one last thing before we get out of here, Spencer. What are you looking for tonight as the Cavs take on LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Bronny James with the Lakers coming to town?
I think that the Lakers' style has changed so much under JJ Redick. They also are going after the offensive glass like crazy. Anthony Davis has been terrific. Austin Reeves just had a great game. We know what LeBron brings to the table. That's but Rui Hachimura, I think, will be the X factor, to be honest. He's had a great season so far. He's upticked his rebounds by 4 a game already. I think he's averaging 8 rebounds, shooting a great clip and is really thriving under what JJ's put him in with his role. I think the Cavs bench can destroy the Lakers bench. I think that is where the difference in the game may be. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they could potentially run him off the floor, to be honest, in those minutes. But when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the other side, obviously it's going to be a close game. Should be a fun game. And you brought it up, Bronny and Bron. We when we were covering this team, we saw Bron in the locker room with his son, and it's just a crazy full circle moment for that family. Very happy for them, and obviously it's really cool. But the game itself, I think it should be a dandy, and this whole week really should be a dandy. You bring in the Lakers
next week too, man.
Yep.
I mean, this is a really good stretch of basketball games for the Cavs.
No doubt. You bring in the Lakers on Wednesday, and then Friday, red hot Orlando. You go on the road to Milwaukee, who's struggling a little bit, but Giannis and Dame cause all sorts of problems. And then next week you start a whole other gauntlet. So should be a fun time, and it's a good test and good measuring stick. And they got off to the right start on Monday in New York.
Yes, they certainly did. And you got off to the right start today. If you made Locked On Cavs your first listen today, Spencer, thank you for doing this. What do you got going on at Cavaliers on SI right now?
What don't we got going on at Cavaliers on SI? So as we brought up at the beginning of the show, we do have a podcast now twice a week. I will be appearing at least once. We have a new name, so make sure you go over to Cleveland Cavaliers on SI.
You're not going to break the news of the new name on Locked On Cavs?
No, I got to do clickbait, man.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Go over to Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, find out for yourself. I also, just for me in general, I have been doing a lot of freelance work. I have a story coming out on a website that is on a college draft prospect. So please go check that out. I haven't announced it yet, so that's why keeping it under wraps.
Look at you being all vague.
But I can tell you, I am still freelancing at Responsible Gambler, which you should go check out my story on Ron Holland. I just did with the Pistons rookie. I thought it turned out very well. I also did one in the preseason with Matas Buzelis of the Chicago Bulls, 2 guys that came out of the G League Ignite and are the last first-round picks of the G League Ignite, as we know that program has ceased. But they both had a lot of thoughts on that, so make sure to check out those stories and wherever my work ends up this season, because I am not limited to one team, one level, or one outlet. So make sure you follow me over and Spin Davies on both Twitter and Instagram, and I promise you, if you're a hoop head, you'll like it.
Well, Spencer, you'll always have a place here on Locked On Cavs, and you will always have a place making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, check out the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed. Also, check us out on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs. If you're watching this video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and notification bell